Alright, this is going to be a weekly recap, and that is from the 29th to the 3rd, and because this is a transition from November to December, I'll just briefly go over my month of November. I really, even though I didn't make that much, right, I really like how my green days are bigger than my red days. Most green days, in fact, are bigger. My biggest green day is larger than my biggest red day, and of course more green days and red days in general. I really like this trading. If I can do something like this and maybe add a zero, that would be really cool. That could be a realistic goal, or just size in more. I did try to size in more as we got towards the end of the month, and I think that was pretty good. And unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to be able to trade tomorrow at least any OTC setups because I was kind of late. That was totally my fault, transitioning from trading on Schwab to Fidelity, because Fidelity still doesn't charge OTC trading commissions, while Schwab, I believe, is going to start doing that tomorrow, which is going to be the 6th of December. So I am going to be behind in that aspect. Now I can also just consider trading on Schwab, and now with that commission, just go larger size. But I just want to just play it safe, just keep really just working on it. And then if I can see I can start doing something nice, or maybe just size in larger slowly but surely on Fidelity, then I can transition back to Schwab, because I do like trading on Schwab more. It's a lot better, a lot easier to trade, I believe, using their platform. And let's go over the week, which I made 33 bucks, 11 trades, a bit more than what I normally trade. As you can see, these are all other weeks. And as for stats, 7 of those trades were green, 63% winning percentage. Actually, the same amount of trades I took were according to my risk level. And I like this. My average dollar gain was about double my average dollar loss. My average percent gain was also double my average percent loss. Ideally, I can do all of this, with larger size and, really be much more profitable. My the only thing I didn't have that was really nice was right here, my average dollar gain. In terms of what was my position size on a winning trade, was about half of my average, losing trade position size. And that was because I traded this one right here. Which one was it? Yeah, this first trade. This was a red day. I lost $3. I traded an $1,800 position. I'm sure if this wasn't part of it, let's just remove it. Yeah, that would have made it much nicer. So I did have that really big trade right there on the first day of the week, and this doesn't really matter too much, I think, because sometimes I'm in a setup for a longer period of time and it just doesn't work out, so I cut the trade. But in theory, my average time in a trade is larger on a winning trade than a losing trade, which would make sense in theory. If I get in a setup it doesn't work, pretty quickly, I get out of it. Again, 33 bucks, and I did trade a bit more, just under $5,000 of trading volume, or dollar volume, which is a very small percent, but some of that is because of the fact that I traded SPY, and that does require a larger size, and because it's like a $400 ETF, it doesn't offer much percent range. So that's probably what made that a smaller percent number, and also that $1,800 trade. But it's not that bad. I've done worse. Definitely, those two things are in mind. But yeah, let's go over the setups. It's going to be 11 setups. As in, how long did I spend in a trade? I didn't count this one because I held it for more than a day. This was like a long-term idea that ended up just being a tiny, swing trade. Let's go ahead and go over the setups. Not go up that high. Starting here, and this was the big trade that I should have taken the first day of the week. November 29. Let's look at CYBL for November 29. And this was a fake morning panic bounce play. So right about here, not a significant red day. Let's go ahead and look at the setup. Again, a fake morning panic bounce play. This was it, I believe, the 29th. And my entry was 934, 29.85. So 934 was right here. 29.85. So right about here, perhaps, right here. At the time, it looked like a morning panic bounce play, but it wasn't. What it was like a gap up that, you know, not really a gap up, but just like a spike it had right in the morning, and then that thing just got sold off. And I thought, you know, maybe it opened here right at the 32.3 level, and then it just downtrended. But I just completely, you know, fell for this, and that was my fault. That was me really wanting to trade a morning panic bounce play, especially coming back after Thanksgiving weekend and not trading very much. I should not have taken this trade, and I did sell this thing in multiple pieces, but I was ultimately out of this trade at 937, and my average was 29.79, so just a small difference. Yeah, 937 is when I got out. Yeah, I just didn't like the way it was trading. It looked like it was going to break the support level at you know, 29.8, and it did break it eventually. This wasn't real. There was like some guy who bought like 1,000 shares. It was just like a really bad execution on somebody's, you know, broker, and then it kind of fell off a cliff. It wasn't a morning panic bounce play. It didn't have like a panic. It wasn't downtrending. It just had this quick spike, and it got sold into, and it looked like a morning panic bounce play. I think what I'm really happy with is that I did sell in multiple pieces, and that I only lost $3.51 trading an $1,800 position. I think that was a good part. You know, if I can say anything good about this setup, that I shouldn't have traded. But yeah, that was the first trade of the week. Let's look at the next trade, NXRP. This is a listed stock. This one, I think this was like the unfortunate one that didn't work out. No, it was this one. Let's look at an inverse head and shoulder setup. A little sketchy because it's the head of a potential inverse head and shoulders. NRXP, the 29th. Yeah, not a very nice daily chart, but it did try something the 29th with a lot of volume, so that was one thing at least. Right about here, we can zoom in closer later. My entry was 906, 1015. Yeah, let's zoom in, I guess, from right here. Actually, I like it the way it is. 1015. So right about here was my entry. Right before, actually, no, was it the same minute it fell off? No, it didn't, but it was pretty close. I was thinking this, you know, like maybe shoulder. This is the head, and then it's gonna, you know, bounce, make a shoulder, and then maybe do something off of VWAP. I learned from here not to really consider the head of an inverse head and shoulders on a listed stock, especially if it failed here. This could have been the shoulder, head, and then it could have been the shoulder, but actually broke under the head here. It broke under, so then it kind of made it useless, and then this thing just kept downtrending. So I kind of learned to avoid something like that. But again, I was in this at 1015. That was right before it was going to take that downtrend. And I did sell roughly a minute later at 885, 1016, 43. Right when it broke the wick, I believe I got out the rest of my size. I don't remember if I'm pretty sure I didn't get all of my shares out at 1016. That might have been the case, but what I've been doing recently is selling in pieces. So yeah, this one clearly didn't work, and I just shouldn't consider, you know, a setup where it's just making lower lows. I should at least let it, you know, make a shoulder of a inverse head and shoulders, you know, just something that doesn't show that it's continuously putting lower lows like it was here. I think that was a good lesson there. Just trying to get more experience trading listed stocks, you know, especially with the commissions thing. That might be a thing soon. So that was it. And let's look at NRXP. Actually the same one, right? Yeah, the same one. I did trade. Huh. An inverse head and shoulder second higher low. Let's look at NXRP, and my entry was 1103 880. So let's look at 1103 880. Alright, so it was right here, 880. So what was I thinking? Shoulder, head, shoulder, inverse head and shoulder, spikes, downtrends, second higher low setup. It did offer something. It kind of worked. It went to 9, but you know, as you can see, it failed right later. And then it did inverse head and shoulders here again, shoulder, head, shoulder, and this could be the second higher low or this one. So it kind of repeated the same pattern again, but I did participate in this one, and it did work a little bit, just a little. I was out. What was it? 6 minutes later, 11:10 at an average of $8.91, almost 92, $8.92 at 11:10. Yeah, so the last piece of my trade I got out at 11:10, which was, I believe, the green candle right here, and I did sell in multiple pieces. It just didn't look like it was going to do very much. It was kind of iffy looking. And if you want to see like a really detailed overview of this trade, you can go back to the video I posted on the 29th and I go over it. But yeah, that was a good attempt. It just didn't really offer that much range, but some of these listed stocks do offer a lot of range and profitability. This one wasn't one of it, and you know, I think that's totally fine. Alright, let's go over CYBL. This was a morning panic bounce play, and it turns out I didn't have like the exit time right, so I went back and I fixed it, and now we are in the right place. This was a morning panic bounce play that did not play out, and something that I've learned with morning panic bounce plays like this, I trade it here, and the thing is that this is VWAP, and sometimes if VWAP is just so close to where it's trading, the range, you know, of a potential morning panic bounce play, it almost always doesn't work. And this was an example of one that didn't work for that reason. At least this is something that I see, a telltale sign. And then it did ultimately offer a morning panic bounce play, but this was kind of hard for me to have considered trading, especially after I just tried there. And then should I really try again? And then the previous CYBL trade I did wasn't even a real morning panic bounce play, but this was it. You know, it did offer a move. It was a bit later in the day, and it did put, you know, a higher low here, and this one did get above VWAP just a little. This one, you know, just got rejected by it and went right under it, but my entry was at 941, 251. Right here was my entry. It looks like it was going to turn around, but, you know, I did have a risk level in place and everything like that. The day low was slippage. I got out the next minute at 248. So 942 was right here. My exit was right here. So what happened was that I was in this setup, you know, and then it broke it just briefly. You can see it broke it just briefly. This range right there. Or if not that, I got out right when it looked like it was going to break. Because I do that if I risk the day low. If it looks like the day low is about to break, I get out before it actually does it, and that gave me that exit at 248, give or take. It did break the next candle, and I was ultimately out of the setup. I did avoid some, you know, losses. I did trade what? A $500 position. That was a good attempt ultimately. It just didn't really, you know, work out right here, which is fine. This was my swing trade setup, IFAN. Let's look at IFAN. My entry was, okay, yeah, the 29th, so it was the same day, and I got out the 30th. So let's look at IFAN. Also notice I did trade a small size there. This is one where I'm gonna have to probably at least, you know, for right now, use a daily chart. And I was in it. So I'm gonna have to no, this is fine. Okay, yeah. So this is a recent OTC runner, nice run up. If I were to go back further, it would even look nicer, but the idea was that I was in it right here, and I think I was in at what? Yeah, 1133. Right about here was my entry. and you know, it just looked like it was going to play off of this support level, you know, when it was right here. I did sell the 30th just because of the fact that the SPY was looking horrible, and I didn't think this thing was going to do much, you know, for that reason, because OTCs are very speculative, and if the overall markets are dropping, you know, like a rock, it's just a theory that maybe people who are in OTC setups, OTC trades, because they're much more risky, they're gonna get out. And I actually did do a nice buy and sell. I did sell at 1307, so I basically sold right here. I did get to 15 briefly, which was cool, but yeah, I sold right here basically, and then I did buy right here. It was a nice percent gain. I just traded a small size, 17 bucks, and I didn't really have a risk level like I do on a regular day trade, but I would have been out for sure if it would have broken this 92 sub penny level, which was the low. That's why I was trading a small size. It did offer a nice move there, and that was about it for that setup. Let's look at the next setup, which is SPY. You can say this is some of these degenerate setups because, you know, I did have to trade, at least according to my dollar risk level, a $4 risk level, but you know, I was still trading a $900 position, 2 shares, and you know, just a tiny percent gain and a tiny amount made because it is such a high priced stock, but, or I guess you can call it an ETF. But the thing here is that it is something that you can put a lot of money in and be profitable, but that's something I'm not gonna do. At least I don't think I will. And let's look at it. I already have the chart. SPY inverse head and shoulder second higher low. So let's look at 257, and I was in at 457.13. So 257 right about here, 457.13. I was in right about here, and as you can see in this, you know, 1 minute chart of the day, inverse head and shoulders, that actually did work out. You know, I think I missed this one or this one, I forgot which one, but you know, I'm gonna try to be more close, you know, more attentive to these type of setups that take longer to play out. But this was an inverse head and shoulder, head, shoulder. You might have called this the second higher low, but I traded this one right here. I did get out of it profitably, but as you can see, you know, it pretty much failed from there, and it did downtrend. So that was a case with that. I don't know why it went right back there, but I was in and out right here. This was the setup, and my entry again was already at 457.13, and then my average exit, because I did have 2 shares and I sold in 2 pieces, I got out 301. So I was in this thing for 4 minutes. Let's look at 301, 457.52. So right here, 301 is when I got out completely right here. Yeah, probably something about the price action just didn't seem nice. This was going to be resistance, and then, you know, maybe here resistance to the tippy top of this range, as well as this indefinitely VWAP, and yeah, it just didn't really play out, but I was able to get out of it profitably. I think I learned a lot. I barely made anything. I definitely learned more than what 80 pennies is, and that was an attempted setup there. The next setup is TGGI. This was a trade on the first day of December, and this one did work out. I like trading OTCs more, and it's going to be very interesting how I'm going to, you know, try to navigate through these OTC setups this week, especially again because I won't be able to trade, I believe, for the first few days, or maybe even the whole week, worst case scenario. But I can still trade listed stocks. But this was a morning panic bounce play, a little different because I had a gap down. Let's look at TGGI for the first, and I already have it here. Do I even have this? It's right here. Not a really huge significant red day, although it is kind of like failing this little uptrend that it was doing there. This is the first. Let's go ahead and highlight this. Yeah, this one was a super profitable, you know, second higher low setup, but no, actually lower low setup. Here was a morning panic bounce play that I traded. This was a lower low. This one offered a crap ton of range, and I really like it. It felt like after this one with TGGI, OTC started to wake up a little more. My entry was at 932, 1575. I traded the wick here, right about here. So the idea is that, you know, it was playing off of 16. At least it did bottom at 16 here. But when it broke under it, it just looks like it was going to do a level 2 reversal. And I did get in for that reason. Again, my entry was there. And I did sell this in multiple pieces. My exit, you know, averaged out was at 934. So I didn't hold the setup for that long. Let's look at 1639, 934. So I did sell in this green candle pretty much everything, which was, you know, fine because it was at VWAP. But I would have liked it if I held maybe just a tiny amount of shares left, because I did trade 30,000 shares. I would have been happy if maybe I held 5,000 shares and I got to sell that into this higher range right here before it started to turn around, or even if it did turn around, to at least hold an extra 5,000 shares to let it play out even more if it could do it, which it did here. But I was pretty much out of it completely by the time we got to 934, which was this candle right here. And again, that was ultimately 1639, so 16.4 right here basically is where I sold, you know, at this level. And I did have a nice entry right about here, so that was pretty good there. That's the only thing I could have done better. That's why I put, as in, did I trade this well? I put okay. And I wasn't very close to my $30 risk level. I guess what? 35,000 shares? Yeah, that would have been closer. Let's see if 40 actually would have been closer. That would have been exactly it. So yeah, that's why I probably put close, because I could have actually traded exactly my $30 risk level, but that's fine. That's ultimately what I traded there. Yep. Just wanted to make sure I didn't get the wrong time there, but that was a setup there. It wasn't really that bad. I just should have probably held a little piece longer, because a lot of them do that. I was just too scared, but at the same time, it was the first real morning panic bounce play that I thought was really nice, you know, that actually played out. Let's look at CNTX. This was the first inverse head and shoulder, second higher low. This one wasn't, yeah, this one ended up being a loser trade. So let's look at CNTX for the first. It looks like this thing has not traded very much. Can I zoom out? I guess not. Let's look at the first right here. Nice big, you know, day right here with a crap ton of volume. Unfortunately, it didn't really do that much, but that was fine. I did trade it at least when it was super volatile and it had a lot of opportunity. My entry was 126, 944. So that was right here, 944. So this was an entry. Why? Inverse head and shoulders, shoulder, head, shoulder, second higher low in theory, and you know, it didn't really play out. It did like move a little bit, but it got choked by this neckline, you can call it, or maybe you can call this a neckline, but it just rejected. I did sell this thing in multiple pieces, I believe. I wasn't in the setup for a short time. I was actually in this one for a bit longer. I got out ultimately at 137, 929, so basically 930. Yeah, 137, which was right here. Yeah, probably when it just kind of broke this little range right here. It wasn't something that played out. I want to be quicker and be in the actual inverse head and shoulders, like right here, because, you know, it plays off of this one sometimes. It definitely plays off of the head. It just lets you even have a larger position size because you're closer to the head and you know where to risk. You're not like, oh, this is going to be the second higher low. Wrong. This is going to be the second higher low, right? And then it ultimately fell off a cliff, right? But definitely more experience trading these listed stocks. And if I can continuously, you know, be profitable and right on setups like that, I'm going to have to trade with a larger size, and that's going to be in my favor, of course. Okay, let's look at CYBL for a morning panic bounce play, and this was the second day of December. This one actually did play out, so let's look at CYBL for the second. I think I have the charts already. Yeah, not a very significant looking thing on the daily chart, but this was a setup here. I just want to know that this thing had a lot of room towards the upside. It did uptrend a lot more, but let's just zoom in a bit closer to where the setup actually was, and my entry was at 9:35 a.m. 1905. So 9:35 was right here, this green candle, and that was at 19. So basically right here in the middle between 19 and 19.1, because it was 1905. That was my entry there. It did have a downtrend from roughly almost 21, and it did get as low as 18, almost 18 and a half. So there was some range there, and I did sell this in pieces. I sold eventually my last position at 9:39, and that was at averaged out at 19.4. So yeah, so that was right, when was it again? 9:39 actually, 9:39. Right here, this was my last one, and yeah, right there basically 19.4 was where I sold, and I was in at right about here. So I was in here, and then I sold right there. That was a setup. This one didn't actually get towards VWAP, which is fine. I think I did pretty well selling this. Maybe I could have gotten a better entry closer near the bottom, because it did play off of 19, and then it broke under 19. It tried holding it here, but it broke it under it here, and then it did like a level 2 reversal. It did put up a higher low. This was a very nice one right here, and I did miss this one right here, but I do want to get much better when it comes to setups like that, if I even end up trading them, because of the fact that commissions are a thing with OTCs, with Schwab at least. Let's look at the last two trades. LKNCY, I traded it twice. Morning panic bounce play and an inverse head and shoulders. Let's look at that morning panic bounce play again, the third. Yeah, a pretty bad red day right here. Lots of volatility. Let's just zoom in from right here, but I want to note that this thing did have a lot more room towards the downside. So my entry was at 944, 1287. Right here. Right about here. Actually, it did get the bottom. It was just having a very clean downtrend, and it did, you know, look like it was going to do a level 2 reversal. And I think there was also support looking at, you know, a much further chart. So, you know, I was in it for that reason. I did sell one immediately at 13, one portion of my position, but I was ultimately out everything by 947 with an average of 1294. Yeah, I got out this candle and 1294. So yeah, I did sell, you know, I did get a buy here, sell some pieces at 1294 ultimately, give or take here. Just didn't really work out. I mean, it offered price action towards the upside, but it didn't, like, you know, it didn't like do something super nice and uptrend. It ultimately had another downtrend. So that was it for that one. And the last setup, which was LKNCY. Let's go ahead and highlight the entire day. I did trade an inverse head and shoulders, and my entry was 1010, 1253. So I guess I'll probably zoom in from here. 1010 was right here, 1253. So this was like an inverse head and shoulders, shoulder, head, and then the shoulder here. I liked it because 1251 had a lot of people at the bid supporting it, as well as 1250, and that ended up being the case right there. It did offer a move towards the upside. You know, it didn't get much further past VWAP. It got under VWAP, but I did very good getting out of it slowly but surely in pieces. And by the time I was out of it, you know, my last position was sold at 1023, averaged out at 1257. So 1023 was right here when I sold my last position, probably before it started the turnaround, when it was looking kind of bad. I think when it kind of broke under this baby range right there, I was in the setup for a bit longer, but yeah, what was my average again? 1257, and I was in at 1253. Not much range, higher priced OTC. I did sell one section like at a slight loss because it did look like it wasn't going to work much longer, but it did move a little bit. If I can keep trading inverse head and shoulders, and I can see that they are a bit profitable and they offer a lot more range, I don't see why I shouldn't size up eventually. I don't think I'm going to size up this week, at least on that, you know, listed stock setups that I'm thinking about. I want to see more consistency, more profitability. That's all I have. A bit of a choppy weekly recap, having to, check the times and, do it in pieces because I'm also doing other things in the meantime. But that was a weekly recap here. Unfortunately, I don't think I'll be able to trade OTCs for a few days while I'm, in theory, moving money to Fidelity. But once I have that, I should be good to go. That's all I have for this week.